since I believe in the veracity of the Bible, I always, when asked or when pressed to answer the question, what do I think about UFOs, I say, well, let us imagine that the door there opens and a young man bursts in, and he's very excited, he's short of breath, and he says, just stop all the proceedings, I must tell you something, you wouldn't believe it, but it happened, let me tell you what happened. And he says that he was hiking from Trenton to Philadelphia, and he got tired, it got dark, and he lay down to sleep in the field. And as he was sleeping in the middle of the night, he was suddenly awakened, not by noises, but by very bright lights. And he looked up, and he saw some kind of a flying saucer, let's call it, hovering. The doorway was open. He could see light inside. There were some beings, some men, standing at the doorway. He could see his silhouette. There was a kind of a ladder coming down from the hovering craft, reaching the ground. And there were beings, men, going up and down that ladder. And he was so startled and shocked that he fainted. And when he came to, there was nothing. Did he imagine it? Did he dream it? Now, what would we think? Did he imagine it? Did he dream it? I think that he really saw it. And I therefore believe that he saw a UFO, what we would call a UFO. And therefore, whoever believes in the Bible has to have an open mind about UFOs, because that young man was Jacob. And that was the so-called famous Jacob's dream. Now he did not call it a UFO. He knew what it was, because he put up a commemorative pile of stones there, and he called it the house of God, and he said, I didn't know, and that's in the Bible, he says, when I lay down to sleep, I did not know that this place is a gateway of the gods, a place from which they can go up and down. So he knew what he had seen. There are, of course, other tales in the Bible. There is the tale about the prophet Elijah, who was taken up to heaven in a fiery chariot. And I therefore draw your attention to some of the ancient depictions of divine beings, gods, astronauts, whatever you want to call them, in what I would prefer to call flying saucers. I frankly like that old name much better than UFOs, because it describes what people see rather than say, you can kill me, but I don't know what it is. And I put a caption under the one at the bottom, because as you can see, it depicts this being definitely in the skies among the clouds, in a kind of a flying saucer or a disc, with flames coming out of it. Now, there were all kinds of flying vehicles seen in those ancient days. One depiction, all these are ancient depictions, none of them are my own drawings. You can see on the upper left-hand side a rocket-like vehicle in the skies, with flames coming out of its tail, which was launched from the ancient Cape Canaveral, located in the Sinai Peninsula. There were what we would call helicopter-like or vertical takeoff vehicles that could fly and then land with extended legs, and these two with the bulbous ones with the extended legs and with the eye-like openings or light fixtures, I don't know exactly what they were found, drawn, painted on the wall, like in a mural, part of a mural, in a place called Tel Gasul, which is on the east side of the Jordan River, exactly where, according to the Bible, the prophet Elijah was taken up to heaven. Now, whether these were the kind of vehicles that took him up, we can speculate, but that's where these drawings were found. Now, as a matter of fact, the people in antiquity had idols made that are called by scholars eye idols, and I have reproduced here some of them. You can see they were all with some kind of a conical shaped head and with very prominent eyes. There were also other statuettes, which I show in the center on the right-hand side, the whole body, again with this conical head and funny eyes. And I think that these ancient depictions, not only of the different kinds of spacecraft or UFOs or flying objects that the ancient peoples have observed, but also of the so-called idols. I have looked through many UFO books on UFOs for some clear drawings of the spacecraft or of the beings that supposedly occupy or man them. And I must tell you that the clearest ones I found are in the ancient sources and not in modern depictions. I think my friend Antonio Hunus, who's out there in the back and who spoke yesterday, uses some of these illustrations from ancient times to illustrate his lectures about UFOs today. And I think that when one asks himself, what really is this UFO phenomenon today? Because the only ones who could be the source of spacecraft from extraterrestrial sources are not beings or astronauts from some star system that is so many light years away from us, and nobody could travel such distances. But are they Nephilim or the Anunnaki from our own solar system on a planet that is well on its way back to us? But as we have seen before, they don't look like that. And I therefore suggest, I have no evidence for it, but I suggest that what really people who say they see those UFOs and their occupants, if it's true, then what they see are really robots, androids, humanoids, who are used as scouts to man scout ships in advance of and ahead of the day when that planet would be again in our vicinity and when the Anunnaki Nephilim themselves would come again and fulfilling the prophecy about messianic times, or in the New Testament about the return of the kingdom of heaven to earth. Thank you.
I'm curious with what you've been talking about Genesis and some things in the Bible. I would imagine that you've looked at literature from the Kabbah and things of that sort. I'm wondering if you would address that, particularly with regard to the Elohim and the legends about the Shekinah?
Well, if you have read, or if not, I hope you will, read my books, I'm basing myself on archaeology and on the text in clay tablets. The writings of the Kabbalah are from the Middle Ages, and I'm not there yet. I'm still in ancient times.
I understand the Hubble telescope will be placed into orbit soon. Do you know if there are plans to try and photograph the planet Nibiru with the Hubble telescope, and if the astronomers will be able to get all they learned from that telescope to the American public?
Well, the answer to the first part of your question is yes, and as a matter of fact, some of those dealing with the pinpointing and photographing of what they call Planet X are not waiting for the Hubble telescope because of the delays in launching it. Whether the results, or rather, whether and when the results will be made public is, your guess is as good as mine. Please.
Yeah. I don't know if that microphone is working. Is it? Oh, it isn't. No. Okay. I have a question about the Nephilim. Seem to have a very reduced role over the years through your books. They seem to be less and less involved in our affairs to the point that they're seemingly not around now. I was wondering if you could expand on what you think the current relationship is. They're coming back pretty soon. Oh, okay. They just got to work. Thank you. Got to work. All right.
At the risk of repeating myself, it's my understanding from your books that the role of the Nephilim in our lives, or of Homo sapiens, has been gradually reduced over the years in terms of overt control, switching over to a more covert control, to the point where seemingly they're not around at all. But you're talking about they're coming back, and I think it's like 1,600 years where the next flyby is expected.
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay, well, I'm just trying to do my own arithmetic in terms of the last time it came by. I was just wondering what your speculation is on the current relationship between the Nephilim and Homo sapiens.
Well, I think you really, by describing a factual situation, you answered your own question. At the very beginning, when they brought us into being through genetic manipulation, they created servants or slaves, really, to work in the gold mines and then to serve them in other ways. That has changed as a result, or in the aftermath of the deluge, the great flood, when they made mankind more or less a partner to being and living and staying on this earth. Each turn, each 3,600 years, in the past they gave us more civilization. If you follow the advent of human civilization through Paleolithic and Mesolithic and Neolithic and domestication and so on, the intervals are always 3,600 years. And obviously each time they decided, with the exception of the attempt to wipe us off the face of the earth during the deluge, but after that they decided that we merit more knowledge, more civilization, and in a way to be more on our own. What they did the last time around, whether they left entirely, and whether any of them may have stayed here, or what kind of relationship they established with all of mankind or with some of mankind, are very complex subjects. Not only that they require more study of available documents, but they lead to very serious theological and other problems, and therefore I have left the discussion of what I think happened and what will happen to the last book in the series, because it is then that I will be stoned, not from drinking, but stoned. So,
When can we expect that book?
well, when do you think I'll be stoned? It'll come. Yeah, thank you. But it's a very, very thorough question.